9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Well, thanks. Good afternoon. It's my privilege as UCM's 16th president to provide for you the State of the University address. I appreciate your attendance and also wish to acknowledge those who are watching by live stream, somewhere up there, and who are also listening in on UCM radio. Today we have with us a number of individuals that I would like to recognize and point out to you. First and foremost, of course, my wife Robin joins us today, so if you stand up, please. We are blessed to be able to spend times like this together, and that's actually how I greet her when I come home. I clap for her, too. So. We also have one of our Board of Governors members with us, Steve Abney. And without the significant support of our board, none of what we do, actually, we would be able to accomplish. And so we appreciate your support in our day-to-day work. I noticed some officials from our officers from our different governance groups. So Faculty Senate, governance group officers, President, Vice President, our staff council officers, and any bargaining unit stewards, you here? Stand up. So I really very much appreciate the engagement we have across campus and your willingness to accept these leadership positions, along with all of the others who participate in our governance groups, because to me, this reinforces the deep commitment that we all have to UCM. So thank you for serving in those various roles. We also have a number of individuals who are new to university leadership, and I will have an opportunity to introduce them later. I want to say special thanks to our tech support, who make all of this possible. Otherwise, it would be just me standing here, which is much worse than this. And special thanks to our digital media production faculty and students who are broadcasting this today, as well as our radio class, Professor Johnson, broadcasting this on UCM Radio, The Beat. So thanks to all of you. And please allow me to also acknowledge integrated marketing and communications staff who put together the rolling video that was prior to the address starting. And that slideshow, if you noticed, it featured pictures from our first year activity, our first day move-in, our week of welcome, and our kickoff experience. And none of that would have been possible or successful, and it was very successful, without so many of you that are here today investing your time in order to share with our students and make sure that they are welcome to this campus. So you are making a difference for them, and of course for UCM as a whole. So thank you for being you. So we appreciate that. So today I have quite a bit of information to cover. So I want to facilitate that conversation by dividing our discussion into 3 different points. So I want to take a look at last year, so the 18-19 year in review, look at where we are right now, and then look ahead to the work that we have to do. And so to get started and to be very succinct, although I won't be, but to be very succinct, you had a great year last year. It was approximately 1 year ago at the 2018 State of the University Address that I find 6 priorities for us to consider. Your collective efforts on each of these priorities has resulted in significant progress and helped position the university very well. So what I want to do is take a moment to provide a brief update on each of these, although I have to say what I'm going to share is only a very small amount of the accomplishments within each of these priorities. The first priority I mentioned last year was sustainable financial and operating structure. And although last year, this time, we had seen a 7% decline in headcount to start our fall semester, we started and finished the year with a balanced budget. With leadership provided by Bill Hawley, and thanks to a collaboration of leaders from across campus, We finalized the strategic resource allocation model, which we now refer to as the RCM budget model. And we are currently developing reports and dashboards for our budget managers, and we have intent to fully implement this model for fiscal year 2021. And we also completed an LED lighting conversion project in the James C. Kirkpatrick Library. The goal of this, of course, is to reduce energy usage and also to minimize replacement costs, given the lifespan. And so we're also, in addition to these three things, we're operating with a revised travel policy. So any of you that have the potential to travel for the university or on behalf of the university, this new travel policy is designed to provide more flexibility to you, the traveler, and also recognize today's modern travel and what you may face, while at the same time making sure that we maintain appropriate fiscal controls. Now, I mentioned Bill Hawley's leadership just a bit ago, and so Bill started with us as an interim appointment last August, and he graciously decided to stay with us, and on April 1st, notice he's smiling a lot, this was before he actually started his job, he began serving as Vice President for Finance and Operations. So, Bill, I'd like to acknowledge you. I also talked about academic program quality last year. And I noted that it was essential for UCM to be perceived as a destination for programs and for you to consider carefully what makes our programs excellent. And I do believe they are excellent. I'm a firm believer in academic rigor and a well-designed curriculum which challenges students and leads to meaningful outcomes. Quality can be measured through input, what I call throughput, output or outcomes, and through external validation. And in terms of external validation, besides our institutional HLC accreditation, we actually have 47 undergraduate and graduate degree programs with separate external accreditation from 36 different accrediting bodies. And in case you missed the press releases from last year, UCM was included in both the Princeton Review and the U.S. News and World Report among the best. These were in addition to another 21 organizations and publications that mention specific academic programs as among the best or the most in their category. Academic program quality starts with all of our faculty, but it also must include excellent leadership. During the spring, we engaged in a national search for our next provost. Many thanks to the search committee, because I know that you spent countless hours engaged in that process. The outcome of this search was the hiring of Phil Bridgman, who began serving as provost and vice president for academic affairs on July 15th. Phil, would you let us acknowledge you? Last year, when discussing organizational culture, which is always a tricky subject, I noted that it was critical for us to be service-minded, that we must be problem solvers, that we must operate in an environment of trust, and that we all must be accountable. I also noted that all of these started with me, and I still believe that, and recognize that trust can only be maintained when we have open communication. So the groundwork to ensure transparent communication by administration included providing access to a communication and feedback form, which is a web-based anonymous form that allows you to provide input and ideas, ask questions, and also point out good stuff that's going on around campus. Now, this form does remain active today, and I would encourage you to use it. And I'm also hopeful that the occasional university update email messages, which hopefully provide timely information to you, have kept you informed. And in case you also didn't notice, we sent out numerous surveys last year. And yes, we have very much used the information from those surveys. Unfortunately, however, we have come to realize that we do a poor job of actually reporting back to you the results from those surveys. So this is something we do intend to correct. And admittedly, more work remains to ensure our work facilitates student success and supports each other and does so in an environment of collegiality. Last year, we also spent time discussing alumni engagement and fundraising. And we did make exceptional progress in reinvigorating our alumni and foundation areas. Alumni programming delivered numerous Mule Nation events across the country, including a home chapter event where more than 250 alumni and supporters attended. Development, by its name and very nature, is a process that requires patience and can be time-consuming. And although it's not yet official, because we haven't finished our audit yet with our Alumni-Foundation, I am pleased to report that during the most recent fiscal year, the UCM Foundation received more than $6.6 million in new gifts and pledges. And that is 26% higher than the previous year. So I think our staff deserve a lot of credit for that. And I'll hear a sigh of relief, at least from some folks on this one. For the very first time in a very long time, the alumni and foundation areas have no vacant positions. This includes the newly redesigned position of Vice President for Advancement and External Engagement, in which Courtney Goddard began serving on March the 1st. Courtney, would you let us acknowledge you, please? And we also talked last year about enrollment and portfolio of educational offerings. And I noted in last year's address that we need a larger enrollment to sustain us for the longer term, and that it would be necessary for us to coalesce our marketing, branding, and recruitment efforts to enhance enrollment where growth makes sense and where demand exists. During the 2018 fall semester, representatives from IMC, Integrated Marketing and Communications, began regular and consequential meetings with enrollment management to determine how best to leverage our messaging in recruitment. One outcome of this was the creation of hundreds, and I mean hundreds, of unique messages to prospective students that we have put into our communication flow. This process allows each academic program to provide richer information and a fuller description of the program to our prospective students. So I know there was a lot of work that was put into this last year, so I want to say thank you to each of you from the programs that took time to create this information and send that to IMC so that it could be put into this electronic flow system. It is making a difference. And I also want to say thanks to Enrollment Management and IMC for their partnership and that collective engagement. Now, another outgrowth to these meetings was the creation of the Strategic Enrollment Management Plan. And there's also an associated committee. And the goal of this plan is to provide opportunity for specific input and direction across a broad section of the institution. And while we know a lot of groundwork has been laid and substantial effort has been expended, we know more work needs to be done in this area, and I will discuss that later. Spent some time last year also discussing marketing and branding. And as part of last year's address, our integrated marketing and communications area launched our Opportunity in Action campaign and also revealed the released this new permanent academic mark. Now, the mark perspective has actually been well adopted across the institution, so I appreciate your usage. Many business cards are now printed with this, and our signage includes it as well. So we appreciate that adoption and IMC's work in creating the mark. IMC also assumed responsibility for the marketing and communication on behalf of alumni and foundation, and this resulted in, among other things, the redo or revision in our UCM magazine. And if you've had a chance to see that, it's quite a nice piece that we were able to distribute to our alumni and our constituents. And IMC was also able throughout the year to update its marketing efforts, including our billboards. So here are examples of billboards that you will be seeing if you haven't seen them already. The idea here, of course, on the billboards is to provide a cleaner look and to ensure that the UCM name is prominently featured. And so we have a play still on our campaign of opportunity and action while also highlighting aspects of what opportunity and action means, and also some of our students. It also includes a replacement for the Mules Country series of billboards with Stomping Ground. So this is our stomping ground. IMC also, by the way, does anybody like these billboards? This can be our focus group, right? So, if you like them, thank you. If you don't, there's some people. Also last year, IMC revised our television commercials, our video commercials, so I'd like to show that to you now.
Imagine opportunity. Got it? Good. Now pursue it. Choose the right college to cultivate it. Discover your passion, your talent. Now share it. Embrace it. Go global. Find support, network, build your team. Set a goal, work hard, achieve it. Be proud of yourself. Celebrate it. Discover UCM. Discover opportunity in action.
And last year, I made the decision to replace the Chief Communications Officer position, which had been effectively staffed by Dennis Kreider on an interim basis for a number of years. And I did so by creating a new position, a Vice President for Integrated Marketing and Communications. So I'm grateful to the search committee that spent a lot of hours, chaired by Robert Lee. I saw him here earlier. And we appreciate your assistance in that national search, even though that search was not successful. However, we were very fortunate to identify someone who I believe was actually the ideal candidate to lead IMC subsequent to that search. So please help me welcome Susan Smedley, who is serving as our Vice President for IMC. She actually started August the 16th, so if you have complaints, see her. And if you've been at UCM for more than a couple of years, and especially if you've been paying any attention at all, you're fully aware that we've had a substantial number of changes in our administrative positions across the entire institution. So to recap, here are all the members of the President's Council. So you've met some of them. We also have Shari Bax, who is the Vice President for Student Experience and Engagement. Shari's here somewhere. You've met Phil. Lindsay Chapman is our General Counsel. Met Courtney, met Bill. Monica Huffman's not able to be here today, but she is the Executive Assistant to the President and the Assistant Secretary to the Board of Governors. Jerry Hughes, who is our Vice President for Intercollegiate Athletics. And you've met Susan as well. So along with on the priorities that I just noted over the last year, we managed to remain focused, which I'm very proud of, on our core mission, having finished the year by graduating approximately 3,400 students. That's graduate and undergraduate. You can clap for yourselves if you want, because you're responsible for that. And I could just keep going. But instead, how about we look at a video which highlights some of your successes from the last year. But wait, there's more. Last year, the state of Missouri allocated an additional $1 million to our core appropriations, which of course is very significant for us. And thanks to substantial effort across many areas, and especially within our Success Advising Center, we are currently at an all-time high for first-year student retention. Our current fall-to-fall, wait, there's a reveal. Our current fall-to-fall retention rate for first-time students who began in fall of 2018 is 74.4%, which is, again, is an all-time high for the university. And just 2 weeks ago, our Board of Governors approved the UCM Strategic Plan, a collaboratively developed set of goals which were derived from extensive input from staff, faculty, students, alumni, and other constituents. So where does all of this leave us? So where are we? Today, we are a strong institution in a great position to capitalize upon the goals established in the strategic plan and to meet the challenges that we face. And yes, in spite of the many successes we enjoyed last year, we do have challenges. One area of concern involves enrollment. Please know that what I'm about to share with you is preliminary information. We won't have our final official count until census, which is in mid-September. But as of Monday of this week, head count compared to last fall is down by approximately 3%. When this decline is disaggregated, we see that the primary driver for the overall decline was a significant loss in our first-time, full-time students, or what we would traditionally call freshmen or first-year students. We will see a double-digit percentage decline for this group of students. Our undergraduate and or overall percentages are not dissimilar from those being reported by other institutions in the state, including Missouri State, Missouri Southern, Southeast Missouri State, University of Missouri St. Louis, and to a lesser extent, UMKC. So why? Of course, there are many factors when you start looking into these numbers, but a key one is the significant level of financial aid packaging, which is an alternative way of saying discounting in the financial aid world, by the University of Missouri at Columbia, and to a lesser extent, Northwest Missouri State. You may have actually seen recent headlines from University of Missouri Columbia. They are experiencing a 16+% increase in their freshman class. The strategy of gapping Pell, which is basically ensuring that college is free if you're Pell eligible, so anything above Pell the university picks up, is actually a pretty simple approach, but also a very expensive one. And this is exactly what's happening at Columbia and Northwest Missouri State. Now, in our numbers, there is good news. We see positive movement in our graduate student and international student populations. And we are very, very pleased with that because there was intentionality in focusing on those groups over this last year. But let me state unequivocally that I am not content with this level of loss in headcount. Now, can we match MU's extensive discounting for first-year students? No. Is it a sustainable model for them or anyone else? No, it's not. And although I won't go into great detail today, especially since we're live streaming, do know that your administrative team is acutely aware of our enrollment trends. And I can share that we have implemented and will continue to implement strategies intended to counter this short-run reduction and also to make sure that our students are aware of the quality that we're continuing to provide. But I can tell you, we need your assistance in this area. We won't be able to do what we need to do without your assistance. But wait, there's more. So what does this mean for our overall fiscal year 2020 budget? So the current revenue forecasting technique that we use involves extensive conversations with enrollment management, extended studies, a review of the trends that exist, such as what's happening in the state of Missouri and beyond, and any number of other external factors that may come into play. And in case you're not aware, the forecast that we actually use is a compilation or a sum of forecasts across 18 different tuition categories. And although you can imagine there's a lot of room for error that could happen in that, I'm happy to report to you that as of yesterday, our current actuals put us within 98.2% of the forecasted revenue for the fall. And we also expect to be, by end of fall, within 99% of that forecast. So a lot of kudos to our Office of Budget and our accounting area for such an accurate forecast, even in the face of declining headcount. So thank you guys very much. So while we're tracking really close to projections for fiscal year 2020, do know that there won't be a lot of cash laying around. So to our budget managers, I ask that you continue to be prudent in your financial decision making so that we can make it through this year without any sort of cuts. Also for this year, as I mentioned, we have a new strategic plan. This plan will guide our work in the coming years, and I would like to provide you an overview of the themes that were approved by the Board of Governors. So there are 6 themes that are in this plan. Student access and success, and within that are 2 goals. Academic excellence, which houses 3 goals. Organizational excellence, which has 4 goals. Inclusive and diverse community with 4 goals. Extended external relations and development with 2 goals. And institutional reputation with an additional 3 goals. So there are embedded within the themes of the strategic plan 18 goals in total. Now, where does all of this leave us, considering our enrollment trends, our budget, and the strategic plan? It leaves us with the work ahead. With the strategic plan now in place, we have to turn our attention to putting this opportunity into action. Yes, I did say that. The Board of Governors has charged us with developing action plans, metrics, and key performance indicators that align with the goals that we identified and presented to them. And oh, by the way, this is a 3 to 4 year plan. Thus, this action must begin right now, today, at this moment, if we're going to accomplish those goals. And this is not because the board said so. The reality of the environment in which we operate will no longer allow us to plod along and wait for a better day. It is our responsibility to make our own better day. It is our opportunity to create our own future. And I trust that given our enrollment numbers for this fall, you're starting to feel some degree of urgency to help accomplish at least some of this work. So our first and foremost attention must be devoted to enrollment. As I noted earlier, our head count for fall 2019 is currently about 3.1% below fall of 2018. And although competition does explain some of that decline, there is another more systemic trend at play. Now, this does not show up very well on this slide. This is data that's provided by the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education. It is a projection of the number of high school graduates in the Midwest over time. And so we are right about here. And so what we can expect to see in the Midwest in particular, but this is actually a national trend, and this is public and private high schools combined, is a general decline in the coming years. And if you look at this point, and if you go on this side, this point right here, 2026 is when we see an acceleration of this downward trend. So here's kind of where it is, to be blunt with you. This trend continues through 2032. Now, we can choose to do nothing, And if we do so, we can expect continuation of year-over-year reductions in headcount and simply become less. Now, I prefer to be more. So we have an opportunity to respond today, and it must start today, to prepare ourselves for this significant demographic shift. So to counter both the current and future expected decline, we must rely on you, our faculty and staff, to ensure that courses and programs are relevant and are delivered through a model that is learner convenient, where students who desire to learn and seek our education can do so through an approach that is accessible. And although the core of this institution will always be a resident campus experience, gone are the days of build it, and they will come. Both society and our students seek alternative approaches. This does not mean we will provide an educational experience that is less rigorous, but quite the contrary. It is imperative that we uphold the quality that our programs have and ensure that this quality exists through external validation. We must also determine where growth makes sense and devote our resources to ensure that growth. And consistent with the intent of the RCM budget model, we must find ways to reward entrepreneurism and activity, whether through undergraduate degree programs, accelerated degree programs, graduate degree programs, certificate programs, stackable credentials, or non-credit programs offered through alternative modalities and time constructs. Offered through alternative modalities and time constructs. And we must also set firm targets and work together to achieve those targets. Now is not the time to be timid. We must think and act without reservation. And in that spirit, and in the spirit of the newly adopted strategic plan, this week, I asked the President's Council to consider what it would take to get us to a full-time equivalent enrollment of 10,000 students by 2023. And to do so by maintaining, if not exceeding, our current financial margins. And we must also do so without losing the substantial progress we have made in first-year student retention. To put this in perspective, hitting this target would require an increase in our FTE of about 15%, or an approximate overall increase in headcount of about 22%, which is about 4% per year over the next 4 years. This is not possible without you. So let me reiterate this point. It will take all of us working together in a sense of collaboration to develop the necessary actions to not only survive, but to thrive in the coming years. And as I said in my inauguration address last April, I believe in you, and I believe in us, and I am confident that we have the wherewithal to create more than just a sustainable structure. Now, if you need proof, simply look at the current first-year student retention percentage I mentioned earlier, 74.4%, with essentially the same staff, and with retention in fall 2018 at 69.9%, we managed to achieve this 74.4% in 1 year through intentional design, a strong focus on a singular goal, and, most importantly, dedicated individuals willing to make a difference. You know, I know, this is no secret. This work was not done by me. It was accomplished by you. And it was done without lowering our standards. So we, the administration of the university, will be calling on you to join us as we develop much-needed action plans. But we also cannot expect to achieve higher levels of enrollment at the expense of maintaining support for our faculty and staff and ensuring our faculty and staff have opportunities to engage in scholarly activities and professional development. For as our academic excellence goals acknowledge, programs must be developed and enhanced, but cannot be done so without sufficient resources and well-equipped faculty and staff who are focused on impactful pedagogy and student success. And as I also stated in April, we should never presume that being busy is the same as being productive, nor should we let overcoming internal impediments serve as a substitute for real accomplishments. And unfortunately, we too often find that we are getting in our own way by engaging in processes or workflow that is overly burdensome and duplicative, or by simply not acting in the best interest of those we serve. To that end, and consistent with the goals that are embedded in organizational excellence, I have asked Bill Hawley to initiate a review of our processes on campus in order to identify and eliminate inefficiencies and duplication. Your input as users of these processes and those involved in these different processes will be critical to ensure that we don't eliminate those that are vital, and also to ensure that we don't allow for unnecessary risk to the institution. Now, I fully realize that none of this effort will be truly effective without substantial progress in external relations and development. These are goals which are intended to provide the additional support we need in this resource-constrained environment. So to this end, I was able to share with the Alumni-Foundation Board of Directors in the spring that we should consider 3 primary categories for fundraising: financial assistance to our students, and collectively necessary for us to be successful. And we will, because I believe in you. At the beginning of the address, we played a countdown video with a voiceover from a NASA launch. And so no doubt this summer you saw the coverage of the 50-year anniversary of Apollo 11 and first set foot on the moon. Now, that's a pretty substantial feat, and I don't think we're planning as an institution to send ourselves to the moon. But this didn't happen by accidents or happenstance or by luck. NASA engineers and scientists developed new and significant spacecraft and procedures, and they methodically practiced every step. For example, to test both rocketry and engineering, and to get close-up images of the moon, in 1959, NASA developed the Ranger program, which was a series of increasingly more sophisticated spacecraft meant to get to the moon, send detailed surface pictures back to the Earth, and then impact the moon when done. Now you wonder, why would they crash it into the moon? Well, you want to make sure it's not made of quicksand, right? So that if somebody's going to land there. And although you may remember well the Apollo 11 story, here's the story of the Ranger. program. Ranger 1 and 2, launch failures. Ranger 3, missed the moon. The Ranger 4 spacecraft failed, but did manage to crash into the moon. Ranger 5 missed the moon. Ranger 6 made it to the moon, but the cameras failed. Ranger 7 actually accomplished the mission. And without the success of Ranger 7, Apollo 11 likely doesn't occur. So I bring this up because to accomplish much, we must set our sights on the big goal. Define clearly the steps necessary to achieve that goal, work in concert, and commit ourselves to taking those steps, and never let failure along the way do anything but help us correct and make us more determined to accomplish. So as you've heard, we have much to do this year. But by working together, what we launch will no doubt allow us to achieve our big goals and beyond. We are truly fortunate to work in a great profession with so much potential to change lives and to be able to do so at a great university. So thank you for attending today, and I hope you have a great academic year.